So, welcome back. This is, I think, episode 4 of how to teach your kid to snowboard. And at this point, your kid should be capable of riding both their edges a little bit and slowing down with both their edges a little bit, even if they haven't been linking them together yet. So, we covered how to spend some time riding across the hill, slowing yourself down, and then how you could sit and flip over to get to your other edge. For this episode, we're going to focus on our first proper edge changes. So, I'm just going to strap in and then we'll get started.
Let's do it!
So on this lap, we are going to let him get off the chairlift unassisted. I'm hoping that worst case scenario, he just has a little sit down. Okay. So same as last time, bud, except I'm not going to grab your arm this time. Okay, bud? When your kids have only one foot strapped in, they are pretty awkward, and it's the most vulnerable time for their knee. So just make sure they're not trying any of that on too big of a hill, and that they are prepared to just kind of sit down and not roll over. If you fell and rolled and the board didn't roll with you, it's going to twist your whole leg right around. Not cool. The first turn that you're going to want your kid to try, usually, is the turn from their toe edge onto their heel edge. The reason for this is because from that point onwards, once they can do this, then they kind of become self-sufficient in terms of getting themselves up. So like a lot of times, some kids physically cannot get up from their butts by themselves, so the only way they can get up is by rolling over onto their hands and knees and then standing up on their toe edge. The problem with that is that if at that point, if they're still trying to work on using their heel edge, then they're getting up on the wrong edge. So up until that point, a lot of times, like as an instructor, I would just help a kid up from their heel edge. But now we're going to be able to ride from the easy way to get up around onto the heel edge, and then you can ride all the way across from there. So this is the easiest of the two turns. The reason it's easier is because all they really need to do is kind of look really hard over their shoulder and then just kind of be a little bit nose heavy, and the board just naturally wants to turn as they look for the turn. Okay, so now he's on his butt. I'm gonna have him flip over onto his hands and knees, push himself up, and then he's gonna look hard over his shoulder to make the turn, ending on the heel edge. Twist your board and heel edge. Nice, go all the way across. There we go. So once they can do that turn, they're pretty self-sufficient with getting themselves up. Looking this way, aim your board down a little bit, follow me. Slow down, and then twisting around, looking hard over your shoulder. Nice, to your heels and slow down. Yeah. Nice. So you can have them do that a bunch of times. We could have them flip around right now and do way more of them. But once they can do that one, then it's time to get the hang of the other one. Now, super pro tip reminder, they need to be good at using their toe edge to slow down before you try this next one. And same with that last one, they need to be good at using their heels to slam the brakes on like that before they try the turn. Because during the middle of the turn, the board's pointing straight, they're gaining speed. So what happens for most kids on this one is they initiate the turn, their board gains speed, but then they panic and then they get tail heavy and fall over. So we need for them to still be kind of nose heavy when the toe edge first engages, so that it engages more at the nose and allows the tail to kind of wash out, which is part of how they're going to slow down. If they're tail heavy when they engage the toe edge, it's going to shoot them around in a carve turn, which is pretty fun if you're doing them on purpose, but not a great way to control your speed. and that's going to add to their anxiety on the next attempt. So we really want to minimize the risk of this being kind of a bad experience. So one of the ways you can do that is to just take your whole board off and catch them on the way through the turn. Now, I'm pretty comfortable doing this with my board on, but for the sake of most people, I'm going to take it off and show you guys so that everyone can see just how crucial it can be to help them finish the turn the first few times. Okay, so on this one, bud, go on your heels, all right? Now, you're going to start off by just getting really nose heavy to point the board down the hill and have it come around me and then onto your toes. Okay, there you go. Nice. Now the other one's the same deal. So looking over this shoulder, super hard nose heavy and back to heels. So the tricky part there is trying to run at the same speed as him, but it's not so tricky that you shouldn't try this. The other thing is that you want to make sure that ideally you do more of these, and each time try to make sure that you're doing less of it for them. So like I'm kind of here holding his hands, but not necessarily pulling him through the turn, because I want him to sort of have a sense of ownership of that. Okay, so same as before, nose heavy, eyes up, give it a wiggle, and toe edge. Nice, now turn back again. Yeah, buddy. Okay, so after they get their first couple of turns, they're probably still having to think about every single movement they're making. So they're a long way off of having that on muscle memory or autopilot. And really that's the goal, is to get them to where they have all of that on kind of an autopilot, right? So if you feel good about it, it's not the worst idea to be kind of a human set of training wheels. So like I said, I want to be doing as little of it as possible for them, but I'm creating the idea of like a safety net so that if they drop their new edge a little early and it's going to hook, you can maybe try and save them or at least slow the fall down for them. Just be really careful that you're not falling on your kid. It is a great way to ruin your skiing vacation. Oren, look where we're going. Okay, so we're going to ride along. At the end of the heel edge, I'm going to shift him out ahead of me so that there's space for him to make a turn around. And then at the end of his toe edge turn, then I'm going to shift him back so that there's space for me to initiate a turn around him. Okay, eyes up, buddy. Oh, we're near short, you can help us. Around me. Eyes up, eyes up. Around you. Eyes up, this way. Over here, eyes up. Eyes on the trees, please. Eyes on the other side of the trail. Try not to swim your turn, buddy. Okay, now if your kid hasn't done as many of these as my kid has, then at the spots like this, they may end up finding that they run out of speed. Super flat spot right here, and if they're making turns that kind of finish with the board pointing across the hill, then they may find that the finish of that turn just kills their speed. And that might mean that they just run out of balance and tip over quite a lot more than they really want to. So on spots like this, the best drill is to just really see if you can get your kid to be able to stay nose heavy while the board points straight. It's a really good way for them to practice getting used to that feeling of being kind of leaning into the source of the fear and the speed, and habitualizing that so that they're in control. When we are nose heavy, the board wants to go nose first. It's like putting something heavy on the end of a dart, or like the head of an arrow, how that always goes first, right? It doesn't spin around. So if you threw a dart backwards, it'll probably flip around in the air and still end up going heavy bit first. So that's what we want to be. We want to be a dart. So aim your board straight, bud, by getting nose heavy. How nose heavy can you get on your board? Yeah, now do that without looking at it. Nice. Now stay like that while your board's going straight, okay? Just let it go flat. No edges. Just let it go straight. Now turn to your heels and slow down. Nice. Slow right down. Nose heavy again. Come on.
Okay.
Nice. So the drill there is just tolerance for being nose heavy while gaining speed. And honestly, if you do that on any spot that's just mind-numbingly flat, not only will it help you get through that flat spot, but it's actually just really good practice for the position they should be in while they're halfway through their turn. If you're going in a straight line while nose heavy and for some reason you do suddenly need to turn, you're already on the foot that you're going to want to use to engage the edge and start that turn so that the tail can wash out a little bit and then can slow yourself down. All right, that wraps it up for episode 4. Check back in for the next one where we get into different shapes of turn and how they're useful for different spots on the trail, and then also might even cover some basic carving. See you then.